My phone's about dead. I have no flashlight or anything, and it's getting dark fast. Called my wife and told her, because it's funny because that evening I told her, I was like, if I kill that big buck, one of those big bucks, I'm calling off work tomorrow. And when I called her, the first thing she said is, are you taking off work tomorrow?
Welcome to the Alpha Outside Podcast, where the dark ain't the end of the day, it's just the beginning. Around here, we dive into the gear, the strategies, and the real stories from the field. No fluff, no hype, just straight talk from folks who live it. Brought to you by Alpha Outside, your go-to source for top-tier thermal night hunting equipment. If it happens after dark, we're on it. From expert tips and battle-tested optics to the kind of hunting wisdom you won't hear anywhere else, Alpha Outside. Whether you're seasoned or just getting started, this is where serious night hunters get the insight they need to stay sharp, shoot straight, and hunt smart. So grab your rig, settle in, and let's get after it. This is the Alpha Outside Podcast. And now your host, Chad Ammon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 5 of the Alpha Outside Podcast. Today, we brought back good friend Jeremiah Austin. We're going to go over some things he has to say, some of the things that's been going on in his hunting days, and, what's been going on, Jeremiah?
Well, trying to stay warm here lately, but and look for those opportunities to get out and find some coyotes. So the cold has hindered some of that. But been after it a little slower start this year to as far as coyotes on the ground, but starting to get exciting with the breeding season. So look forward to a little bit of warmer weather and less crunchy snow.
Yeah, for sure. We was talking before the episode, before we start recording, that, you went out last night. It's the first decently warm night. What was it?
28
degrees.
all night.
And they were on their feet, huh?
Oh yeah, they was definitely active. Actually got to see 2 coyotes that was paired up and was breeding. That was a first for me, actually getting to witness that. They was a long ways and they was responsive, but they was too indulged in their activities to come our way. But they was definitely on their feet moving last night. Been really vocal too lately.
So let's go back to your 2025 season. You did really well. Hunted a lot.
Yeah, I hunted a lot. There was a lot of pressure last year. I'd set a sight for 30 coyotes and had kind of hit that by June. And he was like, go for 50. And so it was a grind. I enjoyed every minute of it. A lot of sleepless nights, long nights, but we ended up finishing out with 49 for myself and 77 with all the guys that we hunt with. So it was a heck of a year.
Yeah, in our area, our region, that's as good as it comes. 49 on the year, and it came down to the last night of the year.
Yeah,
and we got a snowstorm right in the middle of our hunt.
But going back a day, the day before, I had my 50th, and it's one of them things that, wasn't really a mistake, but I was calling to another coyote that I'd seen down the bottom, and it decided to go the other way, and so I kind of decided to call it set, done, and get back to the car, and there's a coyote standing out in the field right where I was, right 75, 80 yards right from where I was calling from originally. So I ran back up to a fence post and tried to take a shot, and I actually ended up missing. So sometimes there's a purpose in those misses too. It just makes you bear down a little bit harder. I know I was rushing around, so I had my 50th, and probably did have 50, a little over 50 coyotes. Some of them dove off into brush that I chose not to go after, just because it was wet and tall weeds that I know I made a good hit on. But I just wanted to count the ones that I physically got in my hand. So it was a heck of a year. We had a ton of call-ins. The coyotes was just, throughout the entire year, there was only a couple times that maybe a week or two that you didn't see much activity, but for the most part, I hunted when it was smoking hot and they was active. Full moon, that's one of the things that I'm not afraid of. A full moon, a lot of people don't like it, but I found that you can be really successful in a full moon if you pick your hide pretty carefully. I noticed that I actually had several kills on nights that I would have probably shot away from.
Can you think of anything that maybe you learned over the year?
Yeah, the one thing that I found that really sticks out is that a perfect wind doesn't mean a perfect setup. I found that I killed a lot of coyotes or had several call-ins when the wind was just almost too bad to be hunting it, and actually even questionable of whether I should have just packed up and left. But in some of the sets, I had to readjust 20 to 50 yards, and even one with my wife, we actually the wind had changed on us, and we ran down the field 200 yards to get the wind right, and looked back, and the coyote was back out in the field right where the call was. So she ended up making a good shot on that one at 220 yards. So it was an exciting year, and learned a lot. And that was one of the things that stuck out to me, is that you have a set that wind is just almost too bad. I still, before I would probably have pulled out and been like, that's where they're going to be coming from. But a lot of times they'll be skirting right the edge of that bad wind. So it's worked out well for me.
I think if the wind's too good, if you have it in your face, they don't seem to come as easy, as quick.
I've called probably more coyotes in definitely on a crosswind than I did have with the wind perfect and in my face.
Yeah, definitely a good idea to give them some wind.
Yeah.
Just like deer.
Yep.
Going back to sounds, you did a lot of calling. Was there something you stuck with all year long, or was it like within seasons they changed up a little bit for you?
So the one thing that I seen that was really working was just the Fox Pro soar house. Was between the soar house, using the MFK food brawl, that combination with sometimes a little bit of the cotton sauce mixed in there, that was all it took. The food brawl sound, that sound is just, I don't care what time of year, it just worked. It's a good natural sound where, coyotes are squabbling over food, and it seemed to work really well throughout the whole season.
Did you your sets? What you run, like 40-minute sets, or?
Here lately with the cold, I've been down to like 25 minutes, but normally 35 to 40 minute set, except for during the tournament. The tournament, we was keeping them at 20 and 25 minutes and bouncing. And that seemed to work well. We had enough properties this year to be able to do that, so that was a blessing. In the past, I didn't have enough places to go, so even on the tournament, we'd make a 40 to 50 minute set. Anymore, I've been trying to keep it to 25, 30 minutes, and then moving on. Seems to have worked, unless I've got, of course, coyotes that are vocal and trying to work in, so I'll stay as long as I need to.
Usually start out with that sour howl, or you start with this cotton sauce, or?
I started out a lot with cotton sauce and the food brawl sound. The one thing that another thing that I've learned this year is that depending on where I'm hunting, every farm has been different. That the temperament of that coyote pack that lives within that area, and they all act different. Some are really vocal, very mouthy, easier to call in, and then other farms, coyotes are typically very quiet. If you howl at them, they may turn and go the other way if you see them. The one thing that I've tried to do is to know my groups of coyotes that I'm hunting and what I can get away with. That's just my own theory. It's not anything I've listened to. But with the multiple properties that I hunt, I've just seen that some places, those coyotes that are vocal, you can pretty much get away with any sound. The one farm I was hunting last night, it's a farm that you do not want to use many howls with. Called a coyote in using MFK stanky leg and TT sound, grab butt sound, and squeaky squeaky. Stayed completely off the howls and brought a coyote off a high wall and brought it into 190 yards. And
do you think any of that temperament has to do with any pressure in those areas, or do you think?
We hunt some really heavily pressured areas, and before, the whole thing with, hunting educated coyotes, yeah, I do think that it exists to some extent, but I think a lot of it too is there's one place that we go that gets hunted heavily. Those coyotes are vocal. Those coyotes are callable. They get more pressure there than any farm that I hunt. On any given week, I would say it probably gets hit 5-6 times, I would say. And those coyotes are callable. They're vocal. You go to the next farm and, they hardly get any pressure, just like the place I was at last night. You just have to be more reserved with your calling. I stay away from howls, and it hasn't seemed to have changed throughout the year. The one thing I have seen is, of course, where coyotes was at this time last year, they're not there this year. They're moving to the food sources and the cover that they like. So that's another thing that's really stuck out to me is that there are farms I have that those coyotes are always in that same hole or pocket. And then there's places that they was there last year and they're not there this year. They've switched sides of the road or something.
Do you think it's like coyotes that locate when you call? Are you at 50-50? I mean, 50% locate, 50% don't come in? Or they come in silent?
It's pretty close to 50-50. I've called a pile of coyotes in that has not responded whatsoever, that have just came running in.
What do you feel your average call-in time is? Is it pretty quick or?
So, yes, I'm pretty aggressive with my calling anymore. I was probably a lot more reserved, but the one thing I've watched happen is, especially with, say, a coyote I could see that was way out there, that I basically threw a Hail Mary at him and just started playing sound after sound after sound and found one that triggered it and they come in and kill it. So that's one of the things that I've learned, that can you overcall? I honestly don't believe so.
I don't think you can either.
I think that it's just, I know Tori Cook spoke of that, it's finding that trigger, and I will run through sounds, finding that one that I get a response out.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Still shooting old 22-250?
Absolutely. It's not let me down. I mean, most of them don't run. I've had a few runners. Last night I had one. What I'm finding is those low, if it's a low hit, you can pretty much guarantee they're going to run. Even if their insides are hanging out, they're going to run. Most of the time, if you're dead center of that coyote or a little bit higher, it's lights out. So that's one thing I've found. The 22-250, though, is just still my go-to caliber, and I usually recommend that to everybody just for the simple fact is the availability of ammunition and just how accurate and deadly they are on coyotes. So that's definitely sticking with that.
Still got the AGM adder on top of it.
Absolutely. It's been a great scope. Very little issues. I think maybe one time we had to do a hard reset on it, but that thing has been used and abused, drug in and out of the car thousands of times. So it's held up very well. Really pleased with it.
We both had some issues though, I think from dragging them in and out of vehicles and using them quite often, keeping zero every once in a while.
Yep. Checking your zero. I've had to do that a couple times. The scopes are tough. You wouldn't think an electronic scope would be able to get bumped off, but they can, and it's always good. That's one tip I can tell you. If you haven't shot your gun in a while, you need to shoot it. Plus, it just makes you more lethal, and when it comes down time.
You gotta know your gun.
Yeah,
You gotta know your
know
trigger.
your gun, know your equipment. That's one of the things I tell people that buy new scopes, is that know your equipment before you go out. In a set is not the time to figure out how to use your scope.
Or how to use your tripod.
Yep. It's just not the time. You're there to hunt. Do your planning and research on your scope before you go. So
Yeah. Your call, how far out do you set your call?
Well,
does it depend on your set?
it depends on my setup. In the wind, I've killed a bunch of coyotes with my call setting right between my tripod legs. Had a few quick setups where just they was there, had to get set up, throw the call between the tripod legs and call, and I've killed them many. The ones you can definitely, the coyotes or the calls screaming underneath of the tripod and in the scope, you can just hear it, it's so loud. I'm super hard of hearing. Everybody hunts with me knows that I have trouble hearing, so I can't set it out too far, or I have to ask, is it on?
Is that on?
Especially
is it loud enough?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Roll with it.
So I don't wear my hearing aids. I did during the tournament. The call to pierce my eardrums wearing that thing all night. And even with it setting, I could hear it though. I definitely could hear it, but those high pitched sounds, I didn't have them adjusted right. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but it was nice being able to hear what everybody else was saying. So.
Got any good stories happen that stick out in your mind throughout the year that would be cool to tell?
Yeah. I mean, so I got my buddy Lance, close friend. He's my neighbor, and he decided to get into it. And so he had bought a night vision scope off you at first. And I was trying to get him to go to thermal, but it was the night vision was in his budget at the time. And so we was going out and multiple times, it was during the summer that he got that scope. And
he's a farmer, so he had a bunch of different properties, a bunch of different connections. Yeah. Put you in some fresh coyotes. Yeah,
we had some awesome first sets, and not trying to shoot all of his coyotes. I would always, you see him, I'd give him 2 or 3 you see hims, and he was getting so much feedback, glow back from his IR light, and that he couldn't see him. Tall grass, foliage was just causing so much reflection, and I ended up shooting, I'm going to say probably 6 or 7 coyotes, maybe more, with him that he couldn't see him. And I can't call him in and just let him go. So one night I called in. We had a bad wind, but we ended up moving in, had a pack howling, just ripping, but they wouldn't move. So we ended up closing the distance and got set up and got within about 200 yards of them and played hammer time right over top of them barking. And all 4 of them come running into 50 yards. One runs up on a rock, and I'm like, you see it? Nope. Pow. I let that one down. One of the coyotes take off running through the bottom. Pow, I shoot it. It goes down. Look over to the left. He's like, to the left. He just starts scanning for me at the time, and I ended up, that one was standing in a little bit of brush, but I ended up getting a 3rd shot. I ended up killing 3 coyotes that night. 2 there, called 4 in, and then at another property he had on our way in, ended up catching a coyote slipping through the woods, and I shot it, and he couldn't see it. So none of them coyotes he was able to get on just because of the condition. We weren't in a nice mowed field, a lot of foliage. So we had a great time. I felt horrible about shooting off his coyotes, but he since then has went to an AGM Adder V2 384, and we've had some good success. Now he's seeing everything I see. So I told him, I said, felt like with me using thermal and him using night vision that I had a complete unfair advantage on him. And so he's since made the upgrade, and he's a school teacher, so it makes it a little bit tough right now for me and him to hunt. But throughout the summer when he was off and when we both weren't in the hayfield, we was able to go and hit it pretty hard. So got him several coyotes and got him on several call-ins. So
Killed a pretty nice buck this year. Let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Finding him, scouting him, and then taking him down finally.
Yeah, that's been the talk of Taylor County, is the big buck that I killed. So early last June, me and you was actually hunting a piece of property, and ended up seeing this buck in June that he was already, going wide.
Yeah, he was wide.
And every time I, was in there coyote hunting, it'd kind of push him back, and, seeing him every time we go in. And so I got with the farmer, and I'm like, hey, normally I don't, care about anybody's deer or anything, but this deer, just as wide as he was going, it was really piqued my interest in the terrain in which he was living in. He was kind of he was a homebody. He had a very tight core area that he seemed to stay in. And so I hit the farmer up and, asked him, hey, you let anybody bow hunt your property? He's like, actually, if you want to bow hunt it, you can. I told him what I'd seen, and actually even offered, I said, I'll just, if I'm out coyote hunting, I'll just keep track of him, and we'll try to get your boy on him in rifle season. I said, if he's still around. He's like, no, you go ahead and hunt him. So I ended up, I quit hunting that valley that deer was laying in, because every time I was in there coyote hunting, actually I wasn't having any. That was before I learned that these coyotes did not like coyote howling. So I ended up just backing out of there, leaving that alone. And every now and then, when I was coming through hunting other farms on that road, I would scan it to see if I could see him. Picked him up a few times. He always kind of in the same general area, so that I kept track of him there. And then when August came, I started going in and in the evenings and setting up in some hay bales.
Yeah, you ran a few trail cameras too.
Yeah, I put one trail camera out. I didn't have a tree stand, didn't have a blind.
No bait.
No bait. All I wanted to do was, last few years I've been doing a lot of ground hunting. I've been an elk hunter for 15 years, and it's always a ground game for me out there, and I really enjoy a spot and stock hunt. So, I told the guy, I said, hey, I want to try to kill this thing with my bow off the ground. And, he thought that was cool, because most everybody wants the hunt on him. They want to put up tree stands everywhere, trail cameras on every fence post.
And there really wasn't any trees to get into if you wanted to.
No, actually, I'd started getting pretty frustrated, because where I was hunting was, I'd had several. So there was the 9-point, the big 9 that I ended up killing, and a really nice 10-point. And I would have been satisfied with either one of them deer. And I was getting really close on this 10. I'd had him at 80. Had him at 25 one night, and actually I thought the whole hunt was blown, because I had a doe walk up on me. I was hunkered down in some grass, and she blew out. I ended up deciding to leave, and when I stood up, the fence crossing, I was watching this 10-point was standing there. I'm standing with my bow in my hand, but he's looking at me, I'm looking at him. Ended up blowing him out, and ended up getting on him one more time. I was setting them hay bales, and the wind was really tricky in there. It didn't matter which way the weather app said it was going. I get in that little valley, and it'd be going blowing right back in there. And these deer was bedding in cattails and ironweed. So, and these 2 bucks was mostly by themselves. So I ended up getting late one evening. It was like 20 minutes before dark, got in on the 10-point, and when he came through, I had ranged some places, and I thought he was 30. He ended up being 40, 42, and I undershot him, the Big Ten. And so that's why I was like, I got to find a tree. Couldn't find a tree to try to get in.
But going back, when you were scouting him, you've seen those deer from the ground with your binos.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple
Yeah, I
times.
actually got pictures of them through my binoculars. They just, like I said, they was bedding in ironweed and cattails. And I would just set up there in the evenings, smoking hot in August. And those deer right before dark would usually get up and work into this bottom. And but I would always leave before they got into the bottom. I just would basically set in them hay bales so I could get glass on them, see that they was there, see where they was bedding. So I knew that they was bedding in a really tight area. And the 9 to 10, and they would usually join up sometime at night. I had that one trail camera on a fence post down there, and they would come into this ag bottom. And so that fence crossing that I was hunting was where they was coming into the field. But once I got a couple trail camera pictures of that big buck, he started skirting it and staying away from it. So I ended up moving my trail camera into a little, to like a little hole on a fence post that was less noticeable on that fence crossing. I got him a few times there, but he was very trail cam leery, and so I only had the one going. The night I missed the 10, because there was only giving me 15, 20 minutes to make a stalk on him. From when I would spot him in the hay bales and see him start working their way to the bottom, they just weren't coming fast enough. I was running out of light, and the wind was just wrong until that half hour, 20 minutes before dark. It would switch and start coming out of the bedding area down to the ag field. So I only had this short window. But the next day, it was overcast, and I'd sent you a message, and I said, I think I'm going to get risky. If the wind's right, I'm going to get close in on the bedding. There was a place that they'd come around this pond, and I'm like, that's where I need to be, is that pinch point around the head of that pond. And so that night, I go in. It was overcast. I was able to get up in there about an hour and a half before dark and set up in these autumn olive. But the problem was, they had been, even though it was October, there was no leaves on them. They had been sprayed, so it was hard to have a good hide. There was no foliage, but I hid in these autumn olive, and it was crazy. I was sitting there about 15, 20 minutes before dark. I hadn't seen a deer, and I couldn't get quite into where I wanted to be, because once I got in there, I'm like, that is way too close to where I've last seen them deer bed. So I stayed back, and about 15, 20 minutes before dark, I thought I could hear something. And for me to hear what sounded like either a buck rubbing or two bucks fighting, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, am I here? Is that really what I'm hearing? And so I'm sitting there, and I'm telling you, I just felt like God telling me, move. And, I've only got, it's natural to want to, if you're in a safe place, to not to want to move. I've got a decent hide here. It's way easier if I'm waiting for him versus me trying to, I had some terrain to work with, but I just felt God pushing me, telling me to move. So I started working my way down to where I'd seen him come around that pond, and there were some cows up at the next pond, and I thought, I bet I heard them cows messing around in that pond because it was hot. And I'm like, man, this is the spot. And I get there, and there's a defined deer trail going onto this little log road going up to the gas well where I was just at. I'm running out. It's I'm losing light fast, and I happen to look up, and I see a deer, big bodied deer, going through the woods, going right towards the gas well where I was just at. He's out there at about 60 yards, I'd say, up on the next bench. And so I couldn't tell what buck it was. Yeah, the wind was still going down the bottom. And so I hit that old road that went up, and that deer's going towards the gas well. And I'm trying to hurry up there because he's moving on pretty quickly. I mean, I mean, his head down moving. And as he gets to the edge of the gas well, he stops and thrashes a tree. Well, I hurry up and try to run up, get a little closer. We only did it for a few seconds and then takes off out into that gas well. So I take off up kind of because there's a little roll in that field. And he just starts to disappear behind that roll while I try to hurry up to gain some ground because I felt like he's walking out of my life. And as I was rushing up through there, I stepped on a giant stick. I mean, it cracked. And I just froze. And I'm looking, I don't see him. And there's a tree in front of me about 10 feet away. And I happened to just kind of peek out around that tree. And there he is standing quartering hard to me. And
Looking.
I mean, when I cracked that stick, he turned and had to come back towards me. And I peeked out around there and ranged him at 42 yards. And I looked at my sight, made sure it was set on 40. And I thought, this is going to probably have to be my shot. I'm going to have to shoot him quartering two, and hope that it, I'm confident at 40 yards. I do a lot of shooting out to 40 and 60 yards. So I drew my bow and I stepped out from behind that tree. And when I did, he seen me and took 2 steps closer and perfectly squared up as straight as you could be. And I just buried the 40-yard pin right in that soft spot and touched it off. And I'm telling you, it looked like a red fireball going towards him. And I just, it was almost like he was in slow motion. And when that arrow hit that deer, his chin almost hit the ground. And I didn't know what it's in from what I'm, from my perspective, looking at that range, I didn't think I got the penetration I did. And he turns and runs straight up the hill away from me, but I can tell that he's plowing. And he runs up, I get my glass on him, and he runs up on the bank. He goes out the hill just a little bit and then just rolls over. And my initial reaction is that, I just grabbed my head and I was like, oh my gosh, I just killed that buck. But I honestly still didn't know if it was the 9 or the 10 because I just knew he was a big frame deer. And so I immediately, my phone's about dead. I have no flashlight or anything, and it's getting dark fast. And I call you, and I'm like, dude, I think I just smoked that big buck. And you was on a recovery on the other end of the county, and he's like, I'm finishing up here. I'll find you. So I called my wife, and I had still a few bars of battery left, and called my wife and told her, because it's funny because that evening I told her, I was like, if I kill that big buck, one of those big bucks, I'm calling off work tomorrow. And when I called her, the first thing she said is, are you taking off work tomorrow? I was like, I think I just smoked that big buck. And so as I thought, well, I don't have no light. I was going to go back and meet you. And I'm walking out of there almost in tears. Not because I killed the big buck, because I didn't feel worthy of what God's blessed me with. I knew that, it wasn't about killing the deer. It was about the hunt. And, a week, 3 days before that I killed that deer, a guy told me, he's like, man, because he knew how big he was. He's like, a lot of guys have done shot that thing with the rifle. I said, not me. I was like, if that deer's intended to me, God will walk him through fire. And in my mind, he did, because I had every odd against me. I feel like I've got good woodsmanship. I've killed deer off the ground, but I've never killed a deer of this caliber off the ground. And I just remember walking out of there to wait for you to come, just feeling extremely blessed, overwhelmed with emotion, not because I killed the deer, but I knew what God did for me, and that was the journey of that whole thing was about the hunt, and there was times I was getting frustrated. I was up there one day trying to hunt. Wind was going every which way. I was getting frustrated with hunting before I killed the deer, a couple days before I killed it, just because of fighting the changing winds. I was, you take a shower, try to get as scent free as possible, and felt like, I'm sweating, the wind's wrong. And I just kind of one day realized where I was at. And I'm hunting on somebody else's property that's been so gracious to allow me to be there. Absolutely beautiful place. Hunting two of the biggest deer that I've got a chance to hunt on somebody else's property that just, like I said, graciously let me come in and hunt. And I started hunting different. It wasn't about, I have to kill this deer. It was enjoy the hunt, enjoy the process, let God guide me. So I really felt walking away from all of that extremely blessed, very humbling because, I didn't feel like I deserved such a gift. And so I didn't take it lightly of, what was put before me. And I don't take credit, my own hunting skills, I don't give them credit. I give God the glory for what happened because, I felt that if it was my time and if that was my deer, I hadn't seen that buck. I'd been hunting the 10. I hadn't seen that buck for over a week, and I'd never had him any closer than 300 yards. I seen him up on a bench one day, bedded when it was almost dark. I seen him come out, and he bedded down. So for me to shoot that deer was just God pouring his blessings out on me once again. And so that was the most meaningful thing for me, is just seeing how God guided me through that process. Yeah. So, and enjoying all the things, my day off from work, getting to set up there, even though it was smoking hot. And I'm like, man, this is not deer hunting weather, started seeing the blessings. You're in a beautiful place. There's big deer here. No one's after me. I'm in a country that I'm free to express my love for Jesus and not be persecuted. So it was a very meaningful hunt. It's just awesome also that a big buck came from it. So yeah. You got a call for a deer recovery, and I told you that I'd like to go on one, and you said, hey, I've got one evening. You want to go? And it worked out, but I wasn't coyote hunting, and we went. Actually, I think we had a storm coming in, and that was one of the reasons that we didn't, which didn't take you long to find the deer, but the guide put a questionable shot on it, but seen the deer lay down and then move off. He did the smart thing and backed out, and somehow had to talk to somebody, got you as a reference. And
he called me and told me a story about how he shot the deer, and it looked like a good hit, and it went 30 yards and laid down, got up a little later, laid down at 60, and then finally made its way out of sight, and he waited about 5 hours. And he walked over and he jumped a deer. And that's when he called me, and he didn't go any further, which is exactly what somebody should do. So he called me, and I told him I could show up right around dark if he wanted to meet us at Dollar General, and that's what we did. So like you said, we went out there and found the deer pretty quick, within 10 minutes. And he was still alive. And that was how many hours later? 10,
12. Yeah.
And he was sick. The deer was sick. He was head bobbing a little bit and stuff, but I agreed to come back the next morning. I'd pin it. We'd know exactly where he was at, and you had to work the next morning, so he wasn't able to come. So I met him at daylight the next morning, flew to the pen, and there laid the deer. The guy was super excited. Like, it was one of my first recoveries. I think I'd found a few, but it's the first one I can remember. But in that drone deer recovery, anything before about the third week of October, somebody's taking your money. I won't accept a recovery next year before October 20 something, get a dog. But after that, it's excellent. I believe in November I found every deer but one, and I should have found it. It was in Morgantown area. I went at high noon. I had some heat signatures, some trees and stuff, but I could not find that deer. So yeah, going back like November time frame, I found them all but one. It was very successful, very easy, and it's a very good tool in that time of the year.
Yeah, I think, to me, just judging by watching the videos and being with you on a dog, looking for a dog, and we found a coyote laying up under a log.
Yeah.
It was crazy as once enough of the leaves come down, there's just nothing hides from it.
No,
and
that's exactly right.
It was very impressive of how quickly that you could identify. A lot of times, sitting back watching you fly, and which you've been looking at it and your eyes trained to looking for this stuff, and I'm watching you fly, and then all of a sudden you stop and zoom in on something, and I'm like, I didn't even see anything, and then oh, there's a rabbit, or there's something up underneath that log. So it was extremely impressive after those leaves come down, of how quickly.
Yeah, I flew a lot after I purchased the drone. I flew every day almost just to learn and to find animals, just to learn, and it paid off. And I got better with some settings and the thermal settings. There's some tricks you can do to kill the other noise in the woods, and just find the animals. And I got better with it, and had fun. It was a good, exactly what this was the first year West Virginia was legal to have to find dead deer with the drone, and a few guys doing it, but I got my foot in the water and enjoy it. And then deer season went out. I started getting a lot of dog calls, lost pets, and those are tricky. I learned a lot with those. As far as pets, you need a lead, and it depends on how long they've been gone. It depends, and if somebody has seen them, if they come on a trail camera, a Ring doorbell camera, or somebody just spotted, that's a good lead to go to. And a lot of times sometimes it may be a few miles away, and I drive to it, and I'm thinking, no way, there's this dog this far. It was a different dog, and usually those are the best ones and the easiest ones, because even if it's been a day or two, they're usually pretty close to that area.
Yeah.
But, I went on several, found majority, and
What's the one that sticks out in your mind of the pet recovery? Because I know that you've expressed to me of several times on these, the pet recovery, of how emotional and rewarding it is to be able to provide that service to people. What's the one that sticks out in your mind the most?
I'll tell you, they all stick out. All the finds stick out.
Yeah.
I found 3 for a family that had some special needs kids, and they were their dogs, and the 3 ran off, and these dogs went so far they crossed an interstate in Pennsylvania, and we got a lead on the other side of the interstate, and I drove to it, and I was like, there is no way these dogs are this far away. And I talked to the lady that saw them, and she pointed which direction she saw them go, and within 10 minutes I located them. And when that family found those dogs, I was on the drone watching, and they just rolled around the field with them, and it was emotional. I'm on this it was a perfect setting, sun going down, backcountry road. I was all by myself at this gas station, and they were just ecstatic, and that was great. And then there's been a couple that was just like a 4-pound Yorkie. They called me, and I didn't. It had been missing for 3 days. Nobody saw this dog. I didn't have any tips. I didn't have any leads. And I drove there, and I took off, and I was at a pretty far distance from where I was at, and the drone had actually lost some signal and was coming back. And as soon as I got signal, I was going to come home back come back home off so I could control it again. And where that drone stopped, I lowered the camera and that dog was directly underneath that drone. I mean, you tell me, like,
how's that happen?
How's that happen? I know how it happens. God stopped that drone.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you another story. Just happened yesterday. I got a call to Lumberport, drove over there. They had one sighting that might have been the dog, might not have been the dog, but I drove to that spot. It was about 3.5 miles away. And I thought the same thing. I'm like, it's been 3 days. It'd been 3 days since the sighting.
Yeah.
And I went up and miscellaneously flew, like outside of my characteristic, how I usually fly, like how I usually grid or how I usually, and within 10 minutes, 15 at the most, about 10 minutes, I hit a hot spot. And
that hot spot, though, was under a log, though, right?
Yeah,
it was just
so
a little bit.
I had to reposition on him about 3 times, and I almost left because I was like, but I knew it was an animal. I knew it just from flying so much. I knew it was an animal, and I got lower and I got different angles, and finally, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was that dog, a long ways away, and like I said, like I told you, God flew that drone to that dog. There's no doubt. Like, it was greater than me because it wasn't how I would usually fly. And it was hard to get to. It took us longer to get to than we did to find. About an hour to get in there to it on the side of a cliff, on a rock. I'm not sure if that dog had fell off of a rock cliff or not, but he didn't want to come off of it. And it was a great recovery. And I got the videos of a woman grabbing him up, and it was just very hit your feelings.
You can't put a price on the feeling that you get from, even though it's not your dog, helping somebody, that's so, it's funny how you get emotionally attached. I didn't even know these people, but seeing the reaction of them and getting their dog back, was just overwhelming. And hearing the story of, how you found it, you told me, right, that God was a pilot, that you was taken to that dog. So it's pretty awesome. A lot of people will say, well, what's got that God have to do with that? He has to do with everything. And that's one of the things that I think that, as we're getting older, we're seeing more and more of how we're more in touch with how we're being blessed every day. And whether it's at work, we've got the Bible study at work, and, so God is at work. He's with you when you're flying drone. He's with you when you're hunting a deer, and I wish that years ago that I would have been more in touch, because the stuff that's happening now is more meaningful. Now what you're doing, it has a greater cause. It's not about the money. It's nice if it helps pay for the equipment, but helping people is, I see I don't know, that's worth more than, you can't put a price tag on that.
So we'll wrap this thing up. Is there any advice that you'd like to give maybe some new guys that get into it?
One of the things that, I've seen, back to the coyote hunting stuff, is that, and I've told people this, is that you have to look with intention. One, having a good scanner is highly important to me. My scanner is the most valuable piece of equipment. I mean, yes, the rifle scope has to perform, and it's all, but my scanner has shown me so much more that I wouldn't have, with my old scanner, wouldn't have seen a coyote that was way out there, or wouldn't have seen something that just popped up. So one thing that the takeaway I've seen is that to look with intent and expect to see something. Part of being successful is having the right attitude. And man, you've talked a bunch about this. We see a lot of coyotes. They don't all result in a call-in, but to me, a successful night isn't defined by how many coyotes on the rack. seeing coyotes, interacting, that's part of the success. So look with intention, expect, every set. I don't go into it as I'm not going to see anything. I look like and scan like I know there's going to be a coyote pop out right there. And so I intensely scan. Anybody that hunts with me knows that from the time the vehicle doors open and even before I shut it, when the equipment's back in, I do one last scan. So then several times that's paid off. So
yeah, it pays off.
The other thing is don't be afraid to call. I do believe that having, thanks for you setting me up with a lot of different calls. That's led to success. I think when you have find a library that you can dig through, I'm calling in coyotes on stuff that I have hundreds of coyote sounds, and I'm just barely, scratching the surface on using them. So I think the big thing is having a good call library that you can bounce through, and not just be doing the same thing and look for that and find that trigger. And you'll find that certain times a year that be like, man, this sound, like there for a while, cotton sauce and food brawl is pretty much all I had to do. And I've even had coyotes locate, and you had told me this before, as a coyote start howling when you're in the middle of a prey distress. And I had that happen, using the food brawl sound in the midst of that prey distress really seems to trigger coyotes. So, and they will sometimes get vocal just over the prey distress. So I learned a lot. That's one of the things is I hunted. It's about, a lot of people see the kill videos and they have this perception of that, man, you're just knocking them down every week. And there are weeks that it may look like that, but they don't see that I may have made 30 sets that week to, get that 1 or 2, 3 coyotes for that week. So it's
it could look like you hardly hunted and just knocked the heck out of them, but really there was a lot of downtime, a lot of empty sets that nobody sees.
Lots of empty sets. But the one thing is keeping a positive attitude.
That's right. You got to be confident.
Yeah. Yep. Know your equipment. Know your equipment before you go, and be confident that you're going to call in.
So going into 2026, which we're about a month in, do you have any goals set, or you have any numbers, or you just want to have fun and keep learning and keep hammering?
I'm probably not going to put a number on it yet, just for the simple fact is I put a lot of pressure on myself last year, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I'm not going to not hunt as much. I'm still going to hunt a lot. The other thing is for me this year is that I've got I should have an elk and a mule deer tag for Wyoming. So that's a goal for me to mentally and physically prepare myself for that hunt, and look forward to that. But it's funny, I look forward to more coyote hunting than I do big game hunting anymore. It's just fulfilling. Even I've got my wife into it. She's now killed, in the past year, 7 coyotes. She's extremely dead. She's not missed. Everything.
She hasn't missed, has she?
No.
She goes out by herself.
She's killed 4 by herself. Yeah. And it's kind of crazy. I wake up and your wife's gone. Where's she at? She's out coyote hunting at the house. So she was out twice the other night when it was 5 degrees. Yeah. And I'm like, you're crazy, But she has found this passion for it just like us. And it's really cool to see her so interested and driven. Now, she heard coyotes in like a breeding squabble the other night that was pretty close, but she couldn't see him. And she was like, I was scared. And that's the first time that she's ever heard. She's like, it did it twice. So But it's crazy to hear her now talking like us and that excitement. And that's what I love about this sport is that it should be low pressure. It's just a coyote at the end of the day. Have fun, keep a positive attitude, enjoy your time out. And, there's plenty of them to go around. Don't get discouraged by other people hunting. We hunt a lot of places other people do, and it may affect some places, but some places it don't. So I say get out there,
Yeah, I can remember like one of the first times you ever took her, and I can't remember if that was 1 or 2 years ago, but I think you was in your blind up on the Wilson farm, and you went to go get your call, and she was just like a little bit afraid because it was dark.
Yeah.
And I think you gave her a pistol, and you're like, here, hold on this pistol.
Well, she had her pistol with her,
pistol,
Yeah, that's what's crazy.
She went from that to like just leaving in the middle of the night to go kill a coyote by herself.
It's crazy. I still can't get my head wrapped around it, but it's the coolest thing, to wake up and where's she at? I checked my Live 360 on the phone. I'm like, oh, she's up on the hill. And so it's awesome to see her, I think when you're out there doing it and a lot of times you quit worrying about the things that's going on in life. You start becoming just more in touch with the darkness, what's going on, out there. So it's just really cool to see, how she's just, we've got her completely set up with everything. She knows her equipment. It is really cool to see her. She's so calm when she goes to make a shot. She doesn't overthink it. She just gets on the coyote and squeezes the trigger, So.
Yeah, she got some good equipment. 204 rifle, Knockpix A scope, Knockpix Lumi, mono.
Anybody says a 204 ain't good for coyotes, needs to shoot their coyotes better. I know that's a big topic of, all splash hits, all kinds of runners. Not from our experience. It's been extremely deadly, but she puts the bullets where she needs to. And out of 7, only one's actually only ran like maybe 15 yards, if that. Shot just a hair low, but she's done really well with it.
Yep, excellent.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So what do you see for 2026? What's your goals for Alpha, the whole business, the drone recovery, the thermal side of things?
2026. I had a guy at the show this week. He's in the industry, and I think he said it best: is if you build it, they will come. And he couldn't be any more right. As far as, like I say, I'm thankful for everybody that's bought off of me, and it just snowballs. They recommend their coworkers, family, friends, and they just keep coming, and now to give them the best service I can. Recommend, a lot of it's just people come to me that has no idea about thermal, or just want to get into coyote hunting because it's the new thing, and help a lot of people make good decisions, and everybody's usually happy. And if not, we take care of them any way we can. But yeah, as far as coyote hunting, my goal is to keep at it. Being so busy, I can't go all the time, so I try to go once a week. Usually we go once a week. I don't want to burn myself out because everything I've ever done, I was in the archery business and it was great, but I totally burned myself out on bows and arrows and actually hunting out of state and all that. So coyote hunting's fresh. It's like a breath of fresh air to me, and it's been great. Like we'd be sitting here like this, talking about this business that I created that I just, like I said, I kept driving it, and it's exploded. So this wraps up episode 5 of the Alpha Outside Podcast. I'm your host, Chad Annan. Today we brought on guest Jeremiah Austin. Hope you all enjoyed our talks and our stories and our info. And until next time, thank you.
This has been the Alpha Outside Podcast. The dark ain't the end of the day. It's just the beginning. From expert tips and battle-tested optics to the kind of hunting wisdom you won't hear anywhere else, we've got you covered, and we hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, you can hit our website at www.alphaoutside.com, on Instagram at alpha_outside, on TikTok at alpha.outside, and on Facebook at Alpha Outside Thermal Hunting Users Group. From Morgantown, West Virginia, this is Alpha Outside, signing off.